lost my pen.
You can borrow mine.
Thanks.
I lost something once. I lost something I couldn't live without. My identity.
So anyway, thanks for the pen.
No problem, huh?
So maybe it's just because I'm American, but I've always really related to this Pokemon. With his really high BMI and lovable friend-shaped body, he's one of the most recognizable Pokemon ever.
I kinda have OCD.
You mean OBCD?
And at this point, he's been around for like 30 years, but unfortunately, he's really fallen from grace. Back in Gen 2, he was the indisputable not only OU, but also Uber champion. He was literally on every single team. The power that he had over the metagame at that point was just unreal. Back in Gen 2, there were only 251 Pokemon. This was ridiculously impressive back then. He had great special bulk, a huge HP stat, which as of then was the highest HP stat ever. He also had a great move pool. Curse helped his physical attack stat and boosted his defense stat, which was his only weak spot back then. Body Slam in return made for great moves as well, but as of today, he had a really similar fate to a lot of our favorites, which is just that as time goes on, new Pokemon get added, and they just either outperform him, wall him, or counter him. And with the addition of more fighting types and the introduction of steel types, Snorlax fell more and more into obscurity. Today, it's ranked NU with Pokemon like Sandslash and Bruxish. And even in NU, he's not even the top 10 Pokemon in that tier. A very sad fate for a formal legend. It's like being in remedial math and still failing. Things aren't really getting better for him either, since if you want a bulky physical attacker, there's really no shortage of them. So like any delusional teenage girl, I looked at this loser with absolutely no form of redemption and I thought, I could fix him. To be clear, I kind of wanted to reinvent Snorlax to the point where I could see him being used possibly in the current OU metagame, which is a lot to ask for when we consider that a Pokemon like Ursaluna is ranked to UU. Anybody that doesn't play with loser Pokemon in NU, the moveset that people usually use for Snorlax is Curse, Rest, Body Slam, and Heavy Slam. So it's not that these moves are necessarily bad, but they just don't bring out his full potential in my opinion. Body Slam is good and it gets stabbed, and it also has a 30% chance of paralyzing your opponent. Heavy Slam is great because it has more power the heavier the Pokemon is. Snorlax is obviously severely obese, and like I said, Curse isn't bad either, but then we get to Rest. Rest is the best move that Snorlax has in terms of reliable recovery, and that's one of his downsides, because having to wait 2 turns for your Pokemon to wake up is not ideal. And yeah, you could also add Sleep Talk. The reality is that a lot of people don't want to waste the move slot on there. And you might be thinking, we've seen this Rest plus Sleep Talk combo work before, why can't it work now? For example, Dondozo. But the thing is that Dondozo can use it because of his excellent water type typing and his ability Unaware. That's not a luxury that Snorlax has. And going back to his damaging moves, Body Slam is good, it only has 80% base power. And it is not super effective against anything because it's a normal type move. And then there's his ability. He has 3 abilities, but most people use Thick Fat. So Thick Fat is great on Pokemon like Venusaur because it halves the damage of Fire and Ice type moves. So for him it's great because it eliminates half of his weaknesses. And you might be thinking, Ice and Fire are great popular attacking types. It should be great on Snorlax, since as a normal type, he doesn't have any resistances to start with. And again, it's good, but it's not great, because since Ice and Fire are not types that were holding him back, again, they don't bring out his full potential. They don't suit him as well as Venusaur does. So this is what we're left with, a Pokemon who in the current metagame has a bunch of meh qualities, and combined with all of his weaknesses and the power creep, it's not hard to see why he kinda sucks now. So now, after roasting him, it's finally time to fix him. So first things first, like I said, I do want to quote-unquote fix him, but I don't want to just max all of his stats out like Eternatus. I still want to look at this Pokemon and recognize it as Snorlax. I want him to still be a believable Pokemon. So let's keep things the same, except buff his defense stat to a 90. Next, let's look at his move pool. As of Gen 9, Snorlax has moves that are great themselves, but because of his low special attack at a measly 65, moves like Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, and Ice Beam that a lot of special attackers would love to have are honestly just useless on Snorlax. And just a little bit into me researching this, I can see why he sucks. In my opinion, the best way to fix Snorlax is to see what role he would best fit into. So I made 2 theoretical sets and roles that Snorlax could maybe run. First, because of his bulk, I figured that he could be a good specially defensive wall. So I went to see what moves he doesn't have, which could be a great addition to his arsenal. But then I ran into another problem. I was trying to look for boosting moves that could be great on Snorlax, but I couldn't really find any because although there are moves like Curse and Calm Mind, they're not ideal. The reason being Curse raises Snorlax's attack stat, which is great, but it also raises his physical defense stat. And you might be thinking, well, that's not bad. And it's not bad. I want him to be a good special wall, not a physical wall. And then you look at other moves like Calm Mind, which, yeah, do raise his special defense, but the wrong attack stat. So I literally went to Bulbapedia and I looked through the entire list of status moves in the entirety of the Pokemon franchise to see if there was a move that would best fit Snorlax. And I found nothing. There is no move that boosts special defense and physical attack at the same time. But there is like 15 different versions of the move Growl. I didn't consider just settling for Curse or one of those other moves that I showed, but like I said, it doesn't do what I need. That doesn't fix Snorlax. We're literally just back to square one.
Next time, eat a salad.
You fat, bald bastard! You piece of subhuman...
At this point, I still thought he had a lot of potential as a wall, so I figured out another way that he could best fill that role and also benefit his allies at the same time. I thought of another Pokemon that had recently gotten some attention. Coincidentally, this Pokemon has the 5th highest HP stat right above Snorlax, and I'm talking about Alomomola. Alomomola has a base 165 HP stat, and people usually run Wish, Scald, Chilling Water, Protect, or Flip Turn. I think Heracross was able to get number 1 on the Gen 9 OU ladder using. However, Alomomola is a physical wall, and I realized that we don't have the equivalent for special attackers, not in Gen 9 at least. That's where Snorlax could come in, and I'm thinking that if we buff Snorlax by giving him Knockoff, Flip Turn, Wish, and Protect, he could be a valuable addition to a team in Gen 9. Since this is a very offensive metagame, Snorlax can provide support for his teammates that would be responsible for actually dishing out damage. The only Pokemon which can fulfill that role as of today as a bulky special defensive Wish user in the current Gen 9 metagame is Clefable, but Snorlax has something that Clefable doesn't have, which is great stats. Even if we don't buff his defense to 90 like I said, while I think boosting his defense up to 90 would be good for Snorlax, even if we don't do that, he would still be far better than her, because not only is his special defense and HP much better than Clefable's, but he also has a 110 base attack stat, so a knockoff of him will hurt a lot more. But not only that, but U-turn is a great move for any Pokemon to have, obviously. And just like Alomomola, I think that Regenerator would be an ability that fits him well as a tank. But I also think that it's lore accurate, since he does just eat and sleep, so he's literally constantly regenerating energy. And I honestly really like what we made here with Snorlax taking advantage of his defensive capabilities. But I still felt dissatisfied, since I feel like we didn't do much with his attack stat. And it only seems fitting that we did that, since he's not just a bulky mon, back then he was a powerhouse who was great at taking hits and dishing them out as well. So I decided to give him a few extra moves, that being Extreme Speed and Swords Dance. And I think you can probably see what I'm doing here. It's pretty straightforward, and it's pretty similar to the Extreme Killer Arceus combo that some people use. You just use Swords Dance, you Terra Normal, and then you run straight through your opponent with Extreme Speed and ignore your horrible speed stat. And to be fair, I don't think this set would be as successful just because that means that Snorlax would have to compete with other physical attackers, and it's very tough in this day. Overall, it's kind of difficult to see if a Pokemon will be successful in the metagame, given that the power creep is really harsh. It's just kind of sad to see a Pokemon with Snorlax's history fall so low. And I know that he got a Gigantamax form, so it's not like he's forgotten, but first of all, that did get banned on Showdown, and it's also like my least favorite gimmick, so I don't count it. But at least he does have a home in his current tier in NU. It could be worse, he could be untiered.